Good morning. Welcome to the Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor webinar. I'm Caroline Erskine, Infrastructure Sector Manager at the UK India Business Council, and I'll be moderating the session today. I'm pleased to introduce you to Vijay Narayan, UKTI Specialist and Managing Consultant at PA Consulting. Vijay will be presenting the findings of UKTI's 3-month study in which he scoped out the various areas of opportunity for UK industry presented by this major project, as well as the timelines for these opportunities. A PDF version of UKTI's report setting out the findings in detail will be available in the next 2 weeks and will be circulated to all webinar participants. Vijay's presentation will last approximately 15 minutes, and following that there will be a Q&A session lasting approximately 20 minutes. I'm also pleased to introduce you to Mukul Verma, Senior Trade and Investment Advisor at UKTI in New Delhi. Mukul is one of the in-house infrastructure sector specialists at UKTI and is part of the High Value Opportunity team tracking progress on this major project. Mukul will also be participating in the Q&A session at the end. Before we begin, I'd just like to familiarise you with the toolbox on the right-hand side of your screens. Just to let you know, we will have everyone on mute during the course of the webinar to keep background noise to a minimum. But if you have a question, please drop it into the little bracket on the toolbox to your right in the Please Type Your Question Here box to send me your question, and I will take it up during the Q&A session at the end. For now, to make sure you can all hear me clearly, could I please ask that you all raise your hand button on the toolbar? Could you please click Raise the Hand button now? Okay, thank you. That seems to be working fine. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Vijay to give his presentation. Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you, Caroline, and good morning to everyone in the UK, and a good afternoon to everyone attending from India. The Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor is a major infrastructure development program that is in progress in the northwest of India. The background to the whole program is that the Indian Railways, which is through the Ministry of Rail, is putting in a dedicated freight corridor between Delhi in the center, north central India, and the capital of the country, to Navi Mumbai, which is a very large container terminal on the west coast of India. It is a 1,483 kilometer long dedicated freight corridor, which aims to separate passenger traffic from the freight traffic and therefore dramatically increase the volume of freight movement between the central economic hub and one of the largest container terminals on the west of India. And as is expected, along this corridor, there will be a lot of economic activity driven primarily by a planned development of 24 industrial nodes along its entire alignment. Of these 24 development nodes, 11 are investment regions and 13 are industrial areas. The difference between the investment regions and industrial areas is that it is one of size. Investment regions tend to be larger and have more infrastructure in their scope than the industrial areas. The total planned outlay for the entire program, which is envisaged to be in 3 phases, is about £54 billion. And the projects in this program will be a combination of public sector programs, PPP programs, projects, and private sector projects. Essentially, the public sector programs or projects will be in the area of what's called the development of trunk infrastructure. Trunk infrastructure is really all the connectivity and utilities that are required in that area. So which would be roads, essentially public transport, and utilities such as power, water, sewage, and ICT connectivity as well. PPP projects really would be the service delivery projects. So whether they be the running of the transportation infrastructure, the development and operation of logistics hubs, power plants, water utilities, and all those kind of projects. And the private sector projects will really be the actual industries, which are the factories, the social and community infrastructure in terms of schools, recreation, and that category of projects. Phase 1 of the entire program is started in 2012 and is expected to go until 2021. Phase 2 is from 2021 to 2031, and Phase 3 is from 2031 to 2041. And that really is the background. On the next slide, we have a snapshot of the actual coverage of the program in terms of its geographical area and spread. The entire DMIC involves 6 states in the northwest of India, like I mentioned before. There's Uttar Pradesh, which is one of the largest states in India, Haryana, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, again one of the largest states in India, Gujarat, and Maharashtra. The entire development area, and this is really called the project influence area, which is illustrated in the graphic on the right. It shows the various development nodes. It shows the alignment of the corridor and the states it passes through. The entire development area covers close to 440 square kilometers. And interestingly, it's about 13% of India's landmass. It will influence the lives of 178 million people, which is about 15% of the population of the country. And it is also one of the economically most active areas of the country. Industrial output, agricultural output, and exports from the region are amongst the highest in India. A quick word about how the entire DMIC program is governed. We have that on the next slide. The Union Government of India has incorporated a company called the Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor Development Corporation, DMICDC for short. And the Union Government has a 49% equity in DMICDC. There are other entities which are invested in the corporation. There is the JBIC, or the Japan Bank of International Cooperation, which is a 26% stakeholder. There is the Housing and Urban Development Corporation of India, or HUDCO, which is a 19.9% equity holder. There is IIFCL, which has a 4% equity, and the Life Insurance Corporation of India, one of the largest public sector financial enterprises in India, with a 1% equity. So it's very well funded, and has very strong equity holders. So there is a lot of commitment behind the program and behind the development of the program. The DMICDC works under the guidance of an apex authority, which has again been set up by the Government of India, which has the ministerial representation. So it is chaired by the Union Finance Minister, and there are other cabinet ministers from various ministries, for instance, the Ministry of Commerce, the Ministry of Urban Development, the Ministry of Environment and Transportation, etc. And it also has the chief ministers of the 6 states that the DMIC influences. And the DMICDC works under the guidance of the apex authority, and that's really how the entire program is governed. I'd also like to mention here that DMICDC is the central or nodal authority in terms of planning the projects and floating the tenders, as well as taking decisions on the bids. In terms of funding, a quick word about the funding, which is on the next slide. We have that here. India and Japan together have set up what's called the Project Development Fund with a corpus of about 96.35 million pounds. 50% of that corpus is provided by the government of India in the form of grants, and the rest by the Japanese government through its various lending agencies in the form of untied loans. Most of this corpus, which is the Project Development Fund, is going to be used for kickstarting many of the projects, and really is the corpus of money available to do feasibility projects, feasibility exercises, and then project plans and planning plans, etc. So really to get the ball rolling in each one of those industrial areas and industrial regions. The Union Government of India, in addition to that, has approved an outlay of 1.8 billion pounds for the creation of trunk infrastructure, which is essentially roads and utilities. All the land that is required for these developments will be provided, procured and provided by the state governments. In addition to this, the Japanese government has approved 2.7 billion pounds for all the non-commercial projects through their various agencies. Really, those lead agencies are the Japan International Cooperation Agency and the Japan Bank for International Cooperation. We do expect, as the program develops and gains momentum, there will be numerous other infrastructure investment agencies, both public and private, that will increase their investment in the overall program. As part of our study, we did an analysis of the various areas in which there are projects, which is on the next slide. On the next slide, we see the main areas. Could we have the next slide, please? Thank you. On this slide, we see the main sectors in which most of the projects have been planned. The graphic on the right represents a plot of the various sectors. Now, there are about 22 known projects as part of the overall development, and we have a snapshot of that later. But what we have tried to do is look at those known projects and then plot them in terms of the sectors where there are the largest number of projects, as well as what we believe are the areas where UK has a strong competitive advantage, or they are very, very competitive. And the plot really shows us that of all the sectors which we see there, which are roads, ports, power, airports, transport, and when we talk about transport, we really mean urban transport, which is MRTS and BRTS systems, water and wastewater management, waste management, real estate, which is really built environment, logistics and infrastructure. Of these, it is water, wastewater, real estate, built environment, urban transportations, power, airport, waste management, which are really the big opportunity sectors for UK companies. On the next slide, what we've tried to do is size that opportunity for UK companies to provide an idea and an indication of what might be on the table to compete for. The total outlay for the 22 projects where the budgets are finalized is £6.23 billion. Our analysis shows that of this 86.9, close to 87 million pounds, is actually addressable by UK companies. And the way we have done that analysis is to see the various project sectors and the phases of work within those sectors, which starts from design, architecture, and consulting to actual build and operation. And across that life cycle, try to plot UK competitiveness and capability, and have arrived at a figure of close to 87 million pounds. 40% of this, we believe, is in the area of design architecture, project management, and consulting. Moving on to the next slide, you can see where some of the big ticket opportunities are, and across these sectors and the life cycle of the project. Project management and transportation is close to 10 million, and I'm just going to sort of pick out the big numbers here. In technology, materials, and equipment, again in the transport area, is about 12 million. And this is, I must mention, all phase one, which is from now to 2021. In construction, there is a fair amount of opportunity in power and a fair amount of opportunity against in transport. And these really are the big opportunities. The other ones are in the area of trunk infrastructure. Now, though the numbers seems a little more modest for water and wastewater, waste management, and real estate, our understanding is that given the sheer number of projects and the fact that these are probably slightly low in terms of initial estimates set out in the project plans, we believe that projects in the area of water and wastewater, built environment, waste management will actually grow substantially. Moving on to the next slide, we have a snapshot of the 22 projects, and we have actually clubbed these into priority 1, 2, and 3. It doesn't mean that the priority 3 projects are really not going to be of much interest. These are actually being plotted in terms of the timelines, which are more immediate and which are a little further out, as you'll see, and then that's been plotted against the actual outlay for the project. So if a project has a larger outlay and a more immediate timeline, we've included it in priority 1, and that's really the logic of this segregation and classification. Each one of these projects is really on the anvil. They are land acquisition for almost all of these projects is in some state of completion. Some of them are actually will begin the tendering process. We expect anytime after June. Most of these projects, we believe, will pick up momentum and will actually get off the blocks the moment the new government at the center takes shape. Moving on to the next slide, a quick snapshot of the current participation of international participation within the DMIC program, and you'll see that there's a fairly diverse set of companies. It must be said that most of the work right now in the program has been in the area of pre-tendering, which is really in the area of planning and feasibility studies and doing detailed program and project plans for each one of the, maybe not just for the industrial area or for the industrial region, but even at a specific project level. You see there are a fair number of companies from Japan, and that's, as expected at this stage, the largest international participant in the program, but a fair spread across the US, the UK, Netherlands, Singapore, and Australia. And traditionally, this sort of reflects well the general international participation and the source of work from in Indian infrastructure projects in recent years. Moving on to the next slide, in summary, really what we believe is, with this large outlay, well-funded and well-conceived program, there being no restriction on the participation of foreign companies, there is a very, very large opportunity for international companies to bring their technology and know-how to these various projects in India. From a UK perspective, all these projects, but because they are in the infrastructure space and because they're going to be funded in in substantial ways, funded by the government or by taxpayer money, there is going to be a great emphasis on sustainable, green, and environmentally friendly technology and operation. This is an area where the UK has a proven capability, proven track record, and we believe that positioning will be extremely useful and position UK companies very, very strongly and competitively in the supplier ecosystem for this program. That really brings me to the end of this overview of the DMIC program.
Many thanks, Vijay. We'll now move on to the Q&A session. If I may start for a question to you, Vijay, what will be the impact of the new land acquisition law on DMIC implementation?
I think, interestingly, the new law will actually make it more, it will streamline the land acquisition process by governments. The whole idea of was to clearly have policy-driven guidelines for the acquisition of land for public use. And in that sense, I think it will definitely make it easier. One of the big issues with land acquisition or infrastructure projects and programs in India was the fact that it would invariably go into litigation. Now, because there is going to be a policy-driven acquisition of land, we expect the amount of litigation will come down. The duration of, and if there is any litigation, it will be quickly resolved. Therefore, putting most of the projects on speedier timelines than before.
Thank you, Vijay. And just following on this point, so is your view that this will alleviate concerns of potential investors? We all know the issues around land acquisition. Do you think that this will be allayed with the new government coming in?
Yes, I definitely think so. I think there will be more uniformity, more standardization in which, in a way in which state governments go about acquiring the land, and therefore far more, clarity. So definitely.
Thank you very much. Of all the states, there's big variation in the progress of DMIC across states, with obviously Gujarat seeming to lead the way. Of all the states, Uttar Pradesh is lagging overall in the implementation change, which is essentially due to the lack of actions from the state government. Diversity on administration control will continue at the state levels, with different political parties ruling at state and centre. To what extent are these factors likely to influence the implementation programme of this project? Mukul, it would be good to have your views on this from the UKTI perspective.
Yeah, hello, hi, welcome to everyone. This is Mukul Verma from UKTI based in Delhi. This is definitely, there is a variation between the progress in different states, with Gujarat almost leading ahead, followed by Maharashtra. And to some extent it is due to the various political formation at the state level. We now expect in this election there should be some consolidation and when this new government at the center takes place, few of the states are already being governed by the party which is expected to form the government in the center. So once there is a more sort of consistent presence of similar parties in the states, then there will be better movement of project, and in terms of progress, we would possibly see better progress within the states like Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh in particular. It's difficult to say anything about UP at the moment because we are still not very clear what kind of formation of or traction the BJP might have in the general elections, and the state government is still the Samajwadi Party government. So there could still be a bit of a difficulty in sort of coming to a meeting point on planning and development. But my sense is that going forward, apart from Gujarat and Maharashtra, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh should pick up.
Thank you, Mukul. Given the soft loans being provided by Japan, do you think that UK companies will be able to compete with Japanese counterparts at the bidding stage for these projects? Vijay, if you could comment on that, please.
Yeah. Interesting question, Caroline. The view is that technically all the loans provided by Japanese agencies are really untied loans. And in the terms of the loan, like it has been in other sectors where the same agencies have invested, for instance, in the metro projects in India, there are specific clauses in the loan agreement that say that the loans are entirely untied, and the bidding process for tenders should be completely neutral. So having said that, one can expect that in certain areas, we know, for instance, in the power sector and some of the power projects, it is likely that the Japanese companies will play a significant role. But technically, I think there are no bidding restrictions. The bids are completely open. The evaluation is transparent, and there is no tie-in with the loans to the actual award of the contracts.
Thank you. Still on the procurement of these projects, what is the general procurement process and typical procurement timeline? Mukul, could you answer that question, please?
I think the general procurement process, as of now, it's being controlled by the DMICDC corporation. There would be normally a bid in two parts. One will be the request for proposal, where they qualify the companies based on their competence for a specific sort of a project. And then once there is a selection of companies, they will then call for the financial proposal, and sometimes there is a combined bid of both the request for qualification and the financial proposal. As things stand now, and under the control of DMICDC, most of the projects they are theoretically considering both cost and quality, but the experience so far has been that quality is not being given the kind of weightage which cost has been given. So it is really again the low cost bids that are finally selected, and the companies who bid on a very competitive cost basis get the projects. The process on the whole takes about 6 to 8 weeks time from the start of the bid when the tenders are submitted to the selection, and sometimes it can take more. But usually it is about 6 weeks or so time gap. It might be short for companies who are trying to build international companies who may not have base in India to sort of get that kind of information and documentation together to submit within 6 weeks. But that's the sort of trend. And mostly what we've seen is that the companies who want to build would have some kind of local tie-ups or arrangements or be part of the consortium. And then once the bid is submitted, then maybe 3 to 4 weeks in evaluation and finalization of the award.
Thank you, Mukul. So the procurement process is quite quick, and moving on from that, clearly that is a challenge, or could be a challenge for UK companies. As you say, it's important that they have a local tie-up or presence. But what do you see to be other main challenges facing UK companies in bidding for these projects?
I think it is basically to position yourself and be here and be able to sort of make an offer that is cost competitive as well as quality. I think these are pretty obvious things, but I mean, if you see from the kind of companies that have been successful, they've all had a big local chapter. They have tried to localize certain costs to be able to compete with companies either who are India based or also from other countries who can, use various formulation and competition to combination to lower their cost of their offers. So cost is a big factor, and the presence and the continuous engagement with the project deliverers is a must, and that sometimes is a challenge for companies who don't have a base here. And equally, I think the process of procurement, since the time frames are short, the presence here is important, and the documentation and things with the bids is sometimes very onerous and complex. So all the more reason for having some local presence and tie-ups.
Thank you, Mukul. A question for Vijay. You mentioned the Priority 1 projects. Are there any specific dates or months when the Priority Project 1 projects will be tendered? You mentioned that post-election we would see an increase of tenders. Can you be any more specific than that?
Yeah. Our assessment is, after having spoken with the people in the various agencies and the people running the nodal agencies in the states, is that many of the projects, and I think it's good to to provide a few examples. There are, for instance, a Narmada water project that's happening in Madhya Pradesh, and there is, for instance, the power projects that are happening in Maharashtra. All of these are almost sort of, on the starting block, waiting to take off. Our assessment is that starting about July, that is the third quarter really of this year, and up to the second quarter of next year, we can expect a majority of these programs to be tendered out, projects to be tendered out.
Thank you, Vijay. Will there be separate tenders for the project management contracts and the design and architecture and construction? Vijay, can you comment on that?
Yes, that's our understanding, Caroline, that in fact they will be fairly segregated. Once it has been decided that the project needs to be executed, the design, architecture, and consulting set of tenders, which could further be separate tenders, will definitely be separate from the project management tender.
Thank you, BJ. So how can UK companies sign up for tenders to receive advanced info on the tenders? We've had the question in relation to the IT sector. Mukul, could you comment on that?
Yes, I think the best way is to register on the UKTI opportunities portal. We are very consistent in putting all the opportunities that are on the way or already out on our opportunities portal. So if companies register on the opportunities portal, they will get access to these opportunities well in time. Otherwise, if you specific to DMICDC, you can also check from time to time DMICDC tenders website. It is a good website. They are pretty prompt in putting tenders on the DMICDC website. So that can be checked as well. And if companies want to be directly in touch with me or my team here, they are very welcome to do so, and we can directly also, the companies who are on our contact database, we keep sending opportunities to them directly as well.
Thank you very much, Mukul. So for any participants that would like an introduction to Mukul, do please free to contact us after the webinar and we can make the introduction. And I would say at UKIBC we're tracking progress, and we know a number of the sort of UK consultancies and others who are involved. So we keep our ear to the ground as well and disseminate information through our various reports and monthly views. And of course the report that BJ and Mukul have been working on will be available in PDF, and that goes into a lot more detail on the projects and timelines. Well, I think we're coming to the end of the Q&A session, so I'd like to thank BJ very much for all the work you've been doing in the presentation today, which has been hugely insightful, and Mukul also for your time. Thank you very much for everybody that's joined today, and I hope you found it valuable. If you have any feedback or comments about today's session, or indeed if you have a session that you would want us to do in the future, please feel free to get in touch. And many thanks for taking the time out today to join us. Thank you. Bye-bye.